What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Balance Sheet. We got a fun episode this week. I'm here with my co-host, Raj.
Hey, what's up, everybody?
Lots to talk about. We've got a fun whodunit in the WWE. A lot of development around the War Games match. The U.S. Women's Championship tournament. NXT killing it as usual. But we have to start with the women of the hour, Mercedes Moné and Kris Statlander. Take a bow. What a match last night. I will come right out of the gate and say that is exactly the type of wrestling that keeps me coming back to wrestling. Um, two amazing women, very straightforward match, no shenanigans, and tore the house down. Just really, I loved it. How did you feel about it? You went did a little different experience watching the show. Tell the
I
listeners about it.
I did. So for those of you who don't know, if you go to your local Dave and Buster's, they have an agreement with I think it's DirecTV where they pretty much get every channel. So all the pay-per-views, it doesn't matter. They pay like a flat fee and they get every pay-per-view for free, no matter what the event is, boxing, UFC, AEW, WWE, doesn't matter. So they have it. So on their website, they advertise we will have AEW full gear if you want to come. So I was supposed to take out my girlfriend and her mom to dinner, and I said, "Hey, why don't we do Dave and Buster's? Because they do have some good food." And she's like, "Yeah, okay, that's fine." Didn't realize that I needed to go for work purposes. So I get there, and I pulled a manager aside and said, "Hey, do you guys have the wrestling pay per view?" And he goes, "Wrestling." He goes, I thought WWE was next week. I was like, ugh, okay. I said, no, AEW, it's on your website. He goes, oh, yeah, we have it, but nobody's asked for it. So if you want to sit in this booth, I can put the TV right above you. And I put it on Twitter last night. I can put it on for you here, but nobody else here wants to watch it. So I was at Dave and Buster's watching it, and you messaged me and you said, "Oh, the match is going to be third." And I said, "Really? Okay, they're going on early. That's good. I can watch the match and then leave and do what I need to do and then go watch the rest of the pay-per-view later." But yeah, I was at Dave and Buster's. I was hoping to go to meet other wrestling fans, tell them about the podcast, tell them what we're doing, yet nobody was interested. And that was kind of disappointing, but it also speaks to maybe why AEW has to refocus itself for the greater good. Because I asked the manager, I said, if this was next week in WWE pay per view, what's the crowd like? He goes, oh, most of the people in here are for that. Like, even if college football is on, most people in here want to see the wrestling if it's WWE. So that just kind of tells you how hot WWE is, how cold AEW is. And I hope Tony learns and understands that he has some audience recouping to do. But yes, I did get to watch it at Dave and Buster's. I didn't watch it with sound. I didn't get to hear commentary until I watched the match a second time at home. But just watching the match and paying attention to it and not looking at my phone, that match was amazing. I was on my seat. I was hooked by every near fall. And I totally thought Mercedes was losing. I totally was like, you know what? This match is great. It's a classic. She's going to lose. Brooklyn all over again. This is maybe her version of Brooklyn in AEW. Cool. They reset her character, but she won. And she won in a very smart manner. Like, she
Yeah.
didn't beat her with a finishing move. She didn't beat her with outside interference. She beat her by working on a body part for the whole match. And finally, that body part gave out when Kris went, for her finishing move, which is Saturday Night Fever, which, as everybody knows who watches AEW, nobody kicks out of it. It's the AEW version of Kiss of Death. And when she kept hitting her leg, I'm like, oh my goodness, maybe she's going to win this match. And then she bit her. And then I'm thinking, oh, okay, she might really win. And then the way she pinned her and cradled her and kind of did the
Leverage.
rowboat, the
Yeah.
leverage, I was like, oh, okay. And I thought, what I loved about this match, and you made a good point. You said this is the type of match that keeps you watching wrestling, and I'm the same way. You know, this reminded me of the first time I saw Ricky Steamboat, Randy Savage, where they had all these false finishes back and forth. And I thought every single one, maybe the person's going to win. And I got sucked in every time. It's like,
And none of it was gratuitous either. It wasn't just a
no.
spot to do a spot. Yeah.
And they did some creative spots I've never seen before in a Mercedes match. Like Mercedes did the Hurricanrana off the ring apron to the floor. And I thought she face planted herself. I thought she hit her head on the thing, but when they replayed it, I saw she blocked it. Um, Amazing, right? Mercedes has had what 1,000 matches almost now,
Yeah.
and nobody has ever caught her Meteora and power bombed her into the turnbuckle.
Love
Seth
that spot.
Rollins thought
Whew.
that was great. Um, I thought the homage to Eddie and Brock
A
Lesnar was
reverse
great.
Eddie and Brock.
Yeah, that was great. They nailed it, and you can argue if this is her best AEW match, whether this match was better than the Willow match, because I think it's pretty much those two. I don't think anybody will put this match above the Bailey match at Brooklyn,
Doesn't have the
but
build for it. Doesn't have the
yeah,
build for
it
it.
doesn't have the build, doesn't have the story, and Chris hasn't been as hot a character as Bailey was 2015, where everybody wanted to see her win, right?
If they had taken Tony, this is for you. If you had taken more time to get the crowd invested into why Chris turned back face, this same match would have had a couple extra decibels
Mm-hmm.
um, with the crowd behind Chris. But that was rushed a little bit, and that goes back to giving the women TV time and storytelling. I am, uh, 40 years old, and I've been watching wrestling and sports for a very long time. And, you know, the greatest athletes that have come around in our lifetime, a lot of times they have a look about them. There's a meme. What is it? The LeBron James when he's got that black mask on, covering his face when he had to protect his nose. Um, tip off. LeBron gets the ball, and sometimes he gets to the top of the key. And if he puts his shoulder down the first time he touches the ball and gets to the front of the rim, and has that look, sometimes you're like, oh, today is going to be different. And I've watched the match twice now, but it occurred to me almost immediately the crispness of Mercedes punches, the intention she was throwing them in the first minute or so of the match. Um, just the way she was moving in the ring, I was like, oh man, locked in,
Mm-hmm.
locked in. And what I will say is it is not her best match ever. Obviously, Bailey Brooklyn is her best match. She's got a couple more that might be a better match than this based on story and investment. That is the best she has ever looked in the ring physically, with degree of difficulty taken into account. She was fast off the ropes. Her transitions were very smooth. She did a lot of things we've never seen before. She played the speed to Chris's power game incredibly well. And I just thought the match, um, they could do that match 10 times and that would be one of the best versions of it. Right. And that's what you're
Mm-hmm.
hoping for when the lights are on. And incredibly impressed with Kris as well. One of the best women's base wrestlers in the world right now. Um, just that is an homage to why Mercedes would take the leap and go to AEW is to get a match like that. That's exactly what she was dreaming about.
So two things. One, the three best women's wrestlers in AEW are Mercedes, Willow, and Chris. And the reason I know this is the three best women's matches in AEW this year are Mercedes, Chris, Mercedes, Willow, Willow, Chris. So,
Yep.
all of them have two of the three best matches, and they're all three involved in the three best women's matches. So it's a no doubter that those are the three best women in AEW. With all due respect to Toni Storm, Mariah May, Sheeta, etc. These are the three best women's wrestlers. These are the three you build the division around if you want to have a long-term viable women's wrestling division the way, their competitor currently does. The competitor has so much depth, though. I think you got to start with these three and build around them. Number
Well, and
two,
Athena too, right? But
yes. Oh, but
she's just not there yet.
she's Ring of Honor, yeah. So
Yeah.
you're correct. She is in AEW, but she's not in AEW. She's like in it's like, if you rent a car at Hertz, Dollar Thrifty is also a Hertz company, but it's Dollar Thrifty. You don't think of it as Hertz. I think
Why is
Athena
there a
might.
Lamborghini parked at Dollar Thrifty?
Yeah, I think Athena has a case to say she's as good as anybody in the world. It's just she's on such a small stage right now, and
Right.
and they got to bring her up to AEW. But so the mystery of Mercedes's career, there's always everybody says, "Oh, why did she walk out in 2022?" I actually think the mystery is what happened in SummerSlam 2021, right? So it was supposed to be her versus Bianca, the rematch. So when I watched this match last night, and I watched it twice, I wonder if that was the match she was supposed to have with Bianca with the same result. And she never got to have that match. And if you go back and watch the Bianca match on SmackDown, that is the official rematch to Mania, she kind of pinned her the same way she pinned Kris to win the match. So I wonder if you take what should have been the SummerSlam match and what they ended up sprinkling in the SmackDown match and you put it together, this was the match. Because we were talking about this before we started recording. Kris has a lot of similarities to Bianca in terms
Oh
of her
yeah.
skill set. She's very powerful, strong base, great seller. Bianca has to get the credit here. She has become a hell of a seller with her facials and how she kicks out and how she throws her hands in the air and stuff. Kris is great as well. And I wonder if, like, Mercedes being the consummate kind of, as Bailey once called her mind for the business is sharp and she's just ahead of everybody. She's like a savant. Did she say, well, I was supposed to do this match at SummerSlam, but we never got to really do it. So, Kris, we could do it, which is you pretty much play the whole match to get your finishing move, which nobody kicks out of. And as you're going to go for it, I kind of, because they obviously know before they set the matchup who's going to win. So it's like, okay, let's work it that way. Because
Yeah.
I gotta say, man, everybody loves the Bianca match with Mercedes at Mania because it was history making. It was a tough spot, first time they had crowd and all that stuff. But if you go back and watch the match, to be fair, it was a great match. Mercedes got like 6% of the offense. Like she
Yeah.
did nothing. She basically said, "Here, I am a tackling dummy, Bianca. Go and show what you can do. Carry me up the steps, press me, whip me, do all your spots. You get to showcase who you are." This match was even. And I loved this match because Mercedes was beating her ass for like the first 8 to 10 minutes.
Yeah. And that got me thinking she was going to lose.
Mm-hmm.
Um, no, I totally agree. This is a high compliment when we say it. Kris and Bianca are very similar.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and to both be that good in that top stratosphere, it's a compliment to both of them. Um, because you have the athleticism, the ability to do the moves off the top rope to keep up with the faster wrestlers, but also just be so powerful. And yeah, I mean the WrestleMania match, I don't think they played it safe by any means. They had a couple tough spots in there, but they didn't overload it with risk, right?
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't packed with risk. She had the press spot. Obviously the hair whip came across as incredible as you could ever hope. Mercedes had the spinning DDT spot, which was cool.
Mm-hmm.
But I absolutely think a Mercedes Bianca match would be levels above done later. So I see your point for sure.
Well,
Um,
that's the other thing, right? Bianca, that was her first ever WrestleMania match.
yep.
That was really her first big main roster pay-per-view spot where it was a singles match because she did win the Royal Rumble the previous year, but I mean the Royal Rumble is a different type of match. And Bianca today is a much better worker than she was back then. And honestly, Bianca's had so many great matches without Mercedes since then. The Becky matches, the Io matches. She's had to carry feuds with Bailey. She's not carried the feud with Bailey, but like she's had the match with Bailey. She's had the match with Nia. She's had a lot of pretty good
Yeah.
matches, and I think she's just a more experienced worker. So I think her and Mercedes now would kill it. And honestly, now I would love to see Bianca versus Kris. When I watched that match last night, everybody talks about Bianca Jade. Well, we forget, the person who beat Jade on her way out of AEW was Kris. Kris
Yeah.
came back and Kris beat her. And I think, man, Bianca versus Kris, or Kris versus Rhea Ripley, or that has me thinking
You know what?
of a different type of match. But yeah,
You know what's so funny though? That type of dreaming is exactly why Mercedes is in AEW, and some people still don't get it. Did
yeah,
she leave a
fair.
match or two on the table in WWE? Sure, a real
She probably
Bianca
she
rematch.
probably left she probably left
Rhea,
20.
yeah, but she also was sitting there thinking like, "Hey, there's these women who," and let's call it for what it is. I think the fact that the women that are so great over in AEW are less known appeals to Mercedes because she wants to be part of
Mm-hmm.
there being more. You know, there's been some scrutiny about Mercedes run in AEW, and when I say some scrutiny, I mean a mountain of scrutiny. Um, and it's just so funny to me because we've talked about on this podcast. There is absolutely a current against her from the crowd, right? The
Mm-hmm.
AEW crowd has it. Even last night, there's like a I'm gonna choose not to cheer for Mercedes. But this is like the third or fourth big match where she's gotten a crowd of people who are kind of like, oh, you're you're not one of us. And by the end of it, they're like, holy shit, that was good. But just real quick, for a bad year, her bad year this year is better than most wrestlers, male or female's good year. I'm not even going to qualify that and say women. Most men don't have as many good to great matches in a year that she's had in AEW and the NJPW match as well. But
So, yeah, I agree with you. So, okay, Mercedes has gotten a lot of scrutiny. I've seen things on my timeline like she's washed. She, she's fallen off. She's overpaid. I've seen all that stuff. There is something though that you said maybe 6 or 8 episodes back that now other podcasts, wrestling podcasts, very famous wrestling podcasts, newsletter podcasts, I'll leave it at that, have caught on to, which is you said the AEW crowd now is very 2017 WWE like, which is they go to the show, but they go to the show almost in protest. They sit on their hands. They don't want to cheer. They don't want to get into anything. They're not happy. They're a miserable group. I have heard 2 other podcasts that I listened to in this past week say the exact same thing, including about last night's show, which is
yep,
somebody, a very famous wrestling writer, said, for what Mercedes' performance was last night, the crowd did not do her justice. The crowd was not good enough and should have been much more into what they were witnessing. And so it goes back to, I think the scrutiny that Mercedes is getting is because she's in a very cold company and she is just bearing witness to the company being cold. Like, you're right. If you just look at her match resume, forget about her character and her promos, because that's going to be part of the story, and I'll get to that in a sec. But she has the Willow match, which is undeniably one of the best women's matches or best matches this year.
yep,
A Stephanie match. And that
great
match
match.
has aged very well. Might not be as good as part one, but that to me is opinion. Because I like the crowd better in the part two match than I did in part one. The Stephanie match was so good that Stephanie probably became a millionaire the next day or the next week because they had the biggest wrestling company in the world flying her in private planes to Canada to sign her behind everybody's back, to the point where she blew off every other booking she had and pissed every other wrestling promotion off because she's like, I don't really care. I got the bag.
Her money
So
went up that night. Her
who
money went up
cares,
that
right?
night. Yeah.
So if you're going to talk about impact, you can't deny that Mercedes has a huge part to play in Stephanie's ascent. Now we get to the little cold streak here. The Brit match, look, I don't like it, but I don't think it's as bad as everybody says it is. Like, I don't think it's the worst match ever. It's just not up to the bar that Mercedes has set
Right.
herself up for. And the truth is, a lot of people overrate Brit. And I mean that in a very nice manner. What I meant is people looked at, well, she had this match with Carmella, and she's had this match with Nia Jax, and she's had the match with Alexa Bliss. So, of course, if she has the match with Britt Baker, it's going to be here. Maybe Britt Baker is just not as good as those women. And we didn't realize it then.
Shout
And
out to
now
Mela, always underrated.
yeah,
Always underrated.
Mella's actually really good. She doesn't get enough credit, but then she goes on the cold streak. So the Sheeta matches, I thought the TV version of the Sheeta match was good.
Yeah.
But then they had the pay-per-view match, which didn't make sense. It's like, well, you already beat her on TV, but you beat her with Camille's help. So maybe there's a rematch warranted. And then that match was actually pretty damn good until the last 4 minutes.
Got weird.
And then
Got
it
weird at
went
the
off
end.
a
It was
rail.
very good.
It
Yeah.
went off a rail. But it's like a movie. Nobody remembers how great the movie was until the ending. You know, one of my favorite movies of all time is Law Abiding Citizen. And I don't know why I like this movie. I just do. And I hated the ending of that movie. And spoiler alert, the movie's like 10 years old. So, okay. Jamie Foxx's character has been outsmarted at every turn. This guy is like the smartest bad guy of all time, but he's not really a bad guy. He's more of a
Vigilante.
vigilante, what is it? Anti-hero, right? And then all of a sudden he gets outsmarted by Jamie Foxx at the end and gets blown up in his prison cell. Like, I hated that. But I love that movie up to the ending. That's what the Sheeta match was. It was like it was great, and then the ending just ruined it for everybody. She
You
has the
know,
match. Yeah, go ahead.
uh, here's the best way to describe Mercedes in AEW. If you're in the NBA, 16 points. I'm going to throw that out there. 16 points. If you're, fifth year player from Villanova, don't play every day, and you score 16 points, you're going to go home and you're going to call everyone in your family and be like, I just scored 16 points in the NBA, guys. Can you believe it? And if
Mm-hmm.
you're Kobe Bryant or LeBron James or Michael Jordan, the team lost because you only scored 16 points. So what's a career night for one player or thousands of players is a disappointment for another player. So with great reward, with great, compensation and spotlight does come greater scrutiny. And I think Mercedes gets that, but
Mm-hmm.
it is laughable. The idea of washed is
Yeah,
so funny.
that was
Those are
because
not
the
bad matches.
because
Those are not bad matches.
I went to the Momo match in DC, and honestly, that was one of the best matches I've seen all year, male or female. But because it's on such a small stage, it's like it never happened. Because it's like, well, she wrestled in front of 12 people, and it wasn't 12. But the point I'm trying to make is that because their pay-per-view numbers are so low, their television distribution in America is non-existent, and they're wrestling in in an arena that has maybe 1,000 seats. It's like, oh yeah, she had that match with Momo, but I didn't see it. Nobody talks about it, so it didn't exist, but it does exist. It's a great match. Everybody should go watch it.
Yeah.
And then again, now she's kind of like, her character is in this flux. It's like her and Camille, but Camille doesn't actually help her win. She wins every match clean. Camille kind of isn't as great in the ring as we hoped she would be.
Yes.
Are they going with $1 Million Man and Virgil? And then I totally thought they were on that trajectory like we went from Michaels Diesel to Million Dollar Man Virgil, but then the Virgil thing worked because people got behind Virgil.
Right.
I don't see people getting behind Camille.
She had two. Yeah.
Yeah. So I never felt like, okay, this is working. Like that's the thing with Mercedes AEW run. In the ring, you can't say it's not been a success because she's had two of the three best women's matches in the history of the company. And me personally, I think Willow Stat is the three. I think Willow Stat's way better than Britt Baker Thunder Rosa, which was that lights out match that they had way back when. I
Yeah.
thought Willow versus Kris is better. So to me, she has elevated the women's division in terms of match quality for sure, star power for sure. But her character in AEW has been a little up and down, right? Like they've never really
Yeah.
gotten behind her, but they've never really like booed her except at the Stephanie match because of the whole Boston Celtics thing. And it was like, it's like even when she cut the promo last week where she came out and she was like, "Oh, I'm from Boston," and everybody booed her. It was like cheap heat,
That.
kind of.
Yeah, it was a little bit. That crowd sucked though,
It
which
does.
is
It is.
a
Yeah.
common refrain.
Mm-hmm.
She at least got, I hate cheap heat, but also sometimes if the crowd's not reacting to anything, you got to go out and just stab them in the ribs and get some cheap heat just to get something going, which is kind of what she did. Um, yeah, I mean the newer crowd, there were 10,000 people there last
Mm-hmm.
night. Um, they wanted her to get booed. If you go back and watch it, Justin Roberts goes, and your TBS champion from Boston,
Yeah.
Massachusetts. It was
Mm-hmm.
like, hey everyone, boo the Boston person. But I don't I think you have a point to make about who she resembled last night, so I'll lead you into that real quick.
Mm-hmm.
I think this very aggressive, not afraid, but willing to do anything to win version of Mercedes is the best heel version of her, biting the knee and all
Mm-hmm.
that. I need Tony to, on TV on Wednesday and to the crowd indoors, cut this match up and put some voiceover on it, calling it one of the greatest matches in women's AEW in AEW history. They need to do it. You know why? This crowd that maybe isn't quite embracing what Mercedes is, best ever wrestling is like crack to them. And I'm just
Uh-huh.
being, that's a
Yeah,
crude
yeah,
way to
I get
say
it.
it, but that's what they get off on is that we in AEW. I'm an AEW fan because the best wrestling happens here, and that match was totally befitting of that moniker, and they just need to shout it from the rooftop. But
What if?
she would go ahead.
No, no, no. Go ahead. I have something about commentary.
I thought commentary was good, but she was on it last night. I mean, she hit every note on what you want a heel champion character to do. Um, Kris doesn't even take a half step back in that loss. If anything,
Mm-hmm.
again,
No,
elevated as Mercedes is so great at doing. Not that Kris, I'm not saying Kris needed being elevated, but she's just that much more seen, we'll call it, right?
I agree. I mean, Willow lost. Willow's been in two of the three best women's matches of the year. She's lost both of them. She lost to
Yep.
Kris. She lost to Mercedes. Last night, she got one of the loudest pops when she came out to beat up Marina Safir. She's totally now part of the conglomerate going after the, what is it, Death Riders, I guess they're called. So Willow wasn't affected by it at all. People love Willow, and when Willow wins that women's world title, she's going to get a massive pop, and she will win it because it's obvious that that's probably the direction they're going to go in. So here's my thing about commentary. Number one, I hate the three-man booth. I hate it in football. I hate it in wrestling. I hate it. I only like it in basketball with Mike Green, Mark Jackson, and Jeff Van Gundy. And before that, I was more of a Marv Albert, Mike Fratello guy, or Bob Costas. When Bob Costas, the game 6 NBA Finals, which was the the Utah Jazz, Chicago Bulls. It was a three-man booth. Your favorite player, or one of your favorite players, Isaiah Thomas, Bob Costas, and I think Matt Gukas were on
Yeah.
the call, which is like one of the weirdest three-man booths of all time for the most popular NBA game of all time in terms of television viewers. But my point is, I don't like the three-man booth commentary in AEW. I just never have liked it in wrestling. I think I watched that match last night. What if Michael Cole and Graves were calling that match? Or Michael Cole and McAfee? Or Michael Cole and Wade Barrett? How much better would that matchup came across on TV? Because Tony is very monotone and he doesn't sound excited for anything. And I
That's
think that
true.
really hurts watching a wrestling match. Because like Michael Cole, when you go back and listen to Michael Cole call Bianca and Mercedes, that's actually why I think that match is also one of the great matches of all time at WrestleMania, because
He
Michael
put the
Cole,
importance on it.
he said, many people could say she's the greatest ever as she's walking to the ring. Corey Graves, now remember, Sasha Banks in WWE was more of a choker than she was a big match winner. But Corey Graves, to his credit, said, when the lights are on the brightest, Sasha Banks shines. So I already felt going in, I'm gonna get a classic. I I never feel that way with AEW commentary, that they're setting me up to watch a classic. So I think commentary is a big part of the story here. But the thing with Mercedes, yes, I have a comparison to her. Charlotte Flair is Ric Flair's daughter, Ashley Flair. We know that. But I think if Ric Flair were to ever have a wrestling daughter, it would be Sasha Banks, Mercedes Moné, Mercedes Vernado. Because last night, Mercedes put on a 1983 classic Ric Flair match, which was the old territory days. So I'm taking everybody back before there was three companies. Ric Flair would go to Atlanta, Georgia, or Athens, Georgia. He would wrestle Tony Atlas. Tony Atlas was the person in that local promotion that was the top person. Ric Flair would come in and say, I'm putting my world title on the line against your best person. Everybody in the crowd thought our hometown person is going to win the match. And at the end, Ric Flair figured out a way to win the match by maybe hooking some tights, cradling him, working a knee, putting his feet on the ropes, whatever way he wins the match. And he leaves the territory, and everybody's like, the next time he comes back, our guy's going to beat him.
He was how did he win? We were so close. That was a fluke. Yes.
That's what
You
I
put
got out
that
of
in
Mercedes last night.
the group chat last night, and I was like 100% yes.
Mm-hmm.
Even the way she sold it after, laying on the floor with the titles, like I did it. That was
That was Ric Flair. That was Ric Flair. That
commentary did the best justice to the match. They, for what they're going to need to do with this AEW crowd, Schiavone goes, she's clutching those titles, and what a match. She earned every bit of it. Like, you know what I mean? Like
mm-hmm.
they have to lean into how credible she is, because she's the greatest freaking women's wrestler of all time, and they signed her. And it's kind of like, I bring up LeBron a lot, but it's a little bit like that Lakers contingent that's like, you're not really a Laker. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
well, so
Yeah,
you don't want to
that's fair.
win? You don't want to
That's
win?
fair. Yeah, that's a fair comp. No, that's a fair comp. And here's what okay, so we're gonna use the sports analogy. So right now, you would agree that she's like LeBron on the Lakers, right? Which is, she's not one of theirs. They don't really embrace her. A smart percentage of the fans do acknowledge her greatness, but it's a small percentage. It's not a big one. Because I know Laker fans who love LeBron, but I know most Laker fans don't like LeBron.
It's
Mercedes,
not that they don't like him anymore. It's like he's just in the middle now, which is actually the worst place to be.
yeah, and we don't want to talk about the Lakers because last night they got rolled. as they usually do by Denver. Denver just has like a mind control over them. Even Westbrook was phenomenal last night. I was like, whoa. You know what they need Mercedes to become? Jared Goff. That's what they need Mercedes to become, which is Jared Goff was traded for Matthew Stafford. This is your wheelhouse here. So, I'm an outsider here. I'm not a lifelong Lions fan. I just looked at the trade for what it was, which is the Rams wanted Matthew Stafford because their coach thought, well, Goff took us to as high as he can go. We need the better arm talent. We need Matthew Stafford.
Yeah.
Detroit's like, for the salaries to match, we got to take somebody back. And Jared Goff was the only person on the Rams other than Aaron Donald who made that kind of money, and they're not going to trade Aaron Donald. So it's like Goff was a throw-in. Now, Mercedes is not a throw-in. But where I'm going with this is the Detroit fan base, from what I remember, and I could be wrong here, Billy, was they weren't high on getting Goff at first. It was like, oh my God, you took away our guy in Stafford. He is going to go on to this great coach, this great organization, and we're getting Jared Goff, like a guy who Sean McVay doesn't even want.
It
But
yeah.
but now Jared Goff is so beloved by the Detroit Lions fan base that he was at a Chicago. I don't even know how this happened. He was at a Chicago Blackhawks game, and they were chanting Jared Goff in Chicago for him because it was Blackhawks versus Red Wings, I guess. And
Yeah.
they were chanting Jared Goff. And every time Jared Goff gets, on the Thursday night game or the Sunday night game, and they win, and they win a lot now, Jared Goff, Jared Goff, and they're cheering for him, and he's like the most beloved Lion since Barry Sanders right now. But it's like that's what Mercedes needs to get to with the AEW fans.
No, it's 100%. It's a great analogy, not just because I love talking about my Detroit Lions right
Yeah.
now, but no, we love Matthew Stafford. A lot of Lions fans still cheered for him when he won the Super Bowl with the Rams in 2021. Um, and it's a good example because Mercedes is Jared Goff didn't win us with one 400-yard game.
No,
Mercedes threw for 500 yards last night. It wasn't one 500-yard game. He won us by being good and helping us win every single week, which gets back to TV. And Tony, when she has a TV match, it can't be this bullshit crunch down 8-minute deal. Build to something. Oh, Mercedes is wrestling. Of course, it's the main event. That's how you have to treat her.
no.
And give us some stuff to sink our teeth into, and she'll nail the pay-per-view matches, but you got to give her that weekly exposure. And that's exactly right. Jared Goff won over the whole city of Detroit by playing well and putting us in a position to win every single week.
Is he more beloved in Detroit now than Matt Stafford?
Yes.
He is, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. So I love Matthew Stafford, and he got dealt a real tough hand getting drafted to an 0-16 team, and but Jared Goff has now won us a division title in 2 playoff games. We're on our way to win a second division title,
Mhm.
and we would be
You
we
are the
could win the
Super
number.
Bowl favorite.
Yeah, if we were the number 1 seed, it would be the first time in my lifetime that's happened. So yeah, Jared, the proof is in the pudding. Jared Goff is more beloved because winning is all. So
Well, and the reason I think the Jared Goff Mercedes analogy is really good is because no matter what you say about Jared Goff in LA, he won a lot in LA. He won a lot. He
yep.
went to the Super Bowl. He won playoff games, number 1 seed, beat Mahomes on Monday night in one of the classic games in Monday Night Football history. I mean, he did a lot of good for the Rams. And I wonder if he brought that culture of winning to Detroit and showed the players how to win. And Mercedes brings kind of the WWE women's culture of winning, main eventing over to AEW. And eventually, the organization catches up to her and we get to that level. Whereas, if you remember when Jared first got to Detroit, and of course you remember this, there were still a lot of questions about the organization above him. the
Oh yeah.
coach.
Oh yeah.
You guys were
We,
losing
we
every game, and then he finally won that game, and people were like, okay. And then the next year, you got off to such a bad start. I remember, so 2022, the first game of the season was Eagles Lions,
mhm.
right? And the Eagles, they just got AJ Brown, and so they were a very chic Super Bowl pick, and they ended up actually making the Super Bowl, but they were a chic Super Bowl pick. And I remember thinking, oh, Detroit's going to be tough. That's going to be a tough game for them because it's in Detroit. And you guys had high expectations that year.
Yeah.
And you guys, I mean, the score was
The hard
38
knocks
35.
here.
It
The
was it
hard
was
knocks here.
38-35. It was 38-35. So it wasn't like, we blew you guys out. No, we were up by, I think we were up 38-17. And you guys really scored a lot of
Came back.
points in the row, and we had to do the tush push to ice the game. I remember that. We didn't kick the field goal, we iced it. But I remember watching that Detroit team that game, and I said, "Shit, this is going to be a playoff team. This team's going to make the playoffs." But then, for whatever reason, you guys just kept losing these weird games. The 66-yard field goal to Tucker. You guys lost all these weird games, but I was like, "This is a good football team. Like, this is a good team." Then you guys caught fire. You won a
We're
lot of games right to the end where you knocked Green Bay out and sent Aaron Rodgers to the Jets, pretty much. Like
and
that
he
was pretty
hasn't been
much the
good
beginning.
since.
Yeah, that was pretty much the beginning of the end of him. And then I'm thinking, okay, here they come. And then last year, you guys certainly came. And I mean, you were really a very poor fourth quarter against the 49ers for making the Super Bowl last year. And this year, I got to say this to the credit of your team. Everybody had them as the best team in the league or the best team in the NFC for sure. And they've actually lived up to the expectations, which to me, as an Eagles fan who went to the Super Bowl, still think we were better than Kansas City that year, but whatever, we lost. The next year we came out 10-1, and I'm thinking, oh, okay, here's the next Super Bowl. And then we crashed. The fact that you guys have lived up to expectations and exceeded them because of how you're outscoring everybody and you're killing everybody, that's hard to do. But with Mercedes, I think she's going to get there where eventually she brings up the organization to her level of winning. And you're seeing it, with Kris and with Willow. And I think slowly she will, the rising tide will lift all boats. But I got to say, I still need to see more from her with AEW on TV. They still need to, I think, do a better job of building her character on TV
100%.
because I still don't know what her character is. Okay, I know she's the best women's wrestler in the world because she tells me every week. But then you can't have her miss pay-per-views. If she's the best women's wrestler in the world, she shouldn't be missing pay-per-views. And
Well,
if she has Camille, but then she doesn't need Camille, then maybe we need to get her a different stable of folks who legitimately help her, or find her a stable where there's a person in that group that can be the one to knock her off, like Batista, Triple H, and you're like, I see it now.
yeah, I, the Camille thing is the only thing I take out of last night and just kind of don't know where to go. I'm glad she wasn't ringside. But it's, yeah, you're right. Changes everything. But so far, all Mercedes has done from a character standpoint is hire one pretty shitty employee who doesn't do anything right. So, like, she is the greatest wrestler in the world, so she's winning in spite of it. But they haven't. I don't know if they just made a bad bet with Camille being ready for a role in such a spotlight. Her two matches really didn't deliver, I think, what they were looking for. But at this point, even if they keep Camille in the stable, that one-on-one dynamic is not helping anyone, so they need to add to the stable.
Flip
Or
this.
or take it out completely.
Flip this. We're in Nashville. We saw the debut of Camille. We were there. What if Kris was her heavy? How does this look now? What if Kris, the storyline is she fell on hard times. Instead of her being managed by Stokely, she was Mercedes' bodyguard because Mercedes is paying her, keeping her solvent. and slowly but surely Mercedes turns on her and Kris punches her and we get this match.
Well, yeah, if you had the foresight, if that was from the beginning, you could have had Kris turn on Willow because Mercedes got her to do so.
Yeah.
Although then towards Kris beating Mercedes or still Willow beating Mercedes, but um, I'm interested to see what they do on Wednesday. TV is something they are struggling with, and I think it's time. We got some good discussion in about Mercedes and Kris, and they deserved it. Probably,
Mhm.
I will put the timestamp in the notes. Um, Anything else you want to add before we jump to WWE, who are excelling at weekly TV when it comes to women? Excelling.
Okay, before we get to WWE, Nina and Mariah had their kind of blow off angle
Yeah.
last night on the pay-per-view, which was the champagne celebration. I don't want to spend too much time on this because if you looked at that segment, and I like both performers, and I know you're a huge Mariah May fan. You're a huge Mariah May fan, and I think she's
Yeah.
super, super talented and she's great. Both of these women are very good in the ring, and they are great, very good wrestlers, professional wrestlers. They're also very attractive women, which, unless you can't see, can't have to acknowledge that. My issue with last night is they're selling me on how good looking these two women are. They're not selling me on how good of professional wrestlers they are. And that whole segment, I mean, everything up to this point with these two has been both of them pretty much telling me how beautiful they are and how sexually, vibrant and everything. And that's okay. But last night, I don't know if I want to see them wrestle each other.
Yeah.
That's my problem.
So your audience is a thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you're telling inside secrets and inside stories, the only people who get it, the 600,000 people who watch it every week. And on a pay per view or on a go home show or whatever, um, highlight reel, you want to reel in someone who maybe doesn't live in your universe. That's how you expand your audience. Um, I saw a couple of people tweet, yeah, the Mariah Mina thing, it's their story. This is how they acted in Stardom. This goes way back. It's not gratuitous or anything like that. It's not setting women's wrestling back because this is them. This is what they do. I'm not going to comment on it. Seems like this is driven by them, which is great. They can do whatever in that regards. What they're hurting themselves on though is it's inside baseball, right? It's an inside. You're not expanding your audience, having lore be very Stardom driven, but because your audience that would happen upon this and maybe get sucked into it are not Stardom. Probably if they are, they're already watching AEW. And I love Mariah. She's got the AEW Women's title, so it's
Mm-hmm.
it's hard to tell a niche story with your main belt. That's all.
Yeah.
I just, it's going to be a good match, and again, they're probably driving the story. So I don't think
Yeah.
this is something that Tony's like, hey, we should do this, but because I've seen their Stardom stuff, so it's totally them. I think they should have brushed it up a little bit though for the main stage, is all I'm saying.
Yeah. And I still need to know why Mariah did she see her as a threat?
Right,
So
that's
that's
what I'm
why
saying.
that's why she did it. But yeah, that was I mean, at least we got an advancement in that storyline, which was good. And then, finally before we get to WWE, Willow returned. She was selling her
Big pop.
injuries from Kris from that match, which was a phenomenal match. I highly recommend everybody check out Kris versus Willow. Willow returned, and I guess she's feuding with the Death Riders. She came back as part of the conglomerate, and she beat the crap out of Marina Shafir, and the crowd went ballistic for her. And look, I could say this, man. Willow has a very strong case as the best baby face in all of wrestling.
Yep.
She has a very, very compelling case because everything she does, everybody likes, and people don't boo her and people don't give her the cheap heat. They just like her. They cheer for her and they want to
She
see her win. And
she
that's what a
feels
baby
genuine.
face is. Yeah, she's
Her
genuine.
character
She's
feels genuine.
happy. People don't snark at it. So yeah, but yeah, we're gonna pivot here to WWE. So WWE has with the women now a whodunit murder mystery.
Right.
And the reason I say murder mystery is if you looked at, so let me set the stage. Bianca Belair is wrestling Chelsea, also wrestling Blair Davenport. It's the first round of the US women's title tournament. And the way they're doing this is they're doing 4 3-way matches to lead to, 2 semifinal matches and then a finals match. And it's Bianca wrestling Blair, wrestling Chelsea in the ring, and they're having a hell of a match. This 3-way had me on the edge of my seat. I was into it. And all of a sudden, the camera goes to the back. They do the, Nick Aldis, we need help, or I think it was Bobby Roode. And
Yeah.
Jade is laid out on the car hood, indented in
Like Bronson Reed
glass.
had just splashed her or something. Yeah.
She looked dead. And then WWE listed on their X feed all the injuries she had. So if those are all real injuries, which they obviously aren't, this is a storyline thing. She wouldn't probably ever wrestle again. But that's a different conversation. So
Is she
she's
really
there.
hurt?
So I heard that this was done to protect her from losing in the tournament, but that doesn't make sense because it's a 3-way, so she doesn't have to get the pin. So you could still have her lose and not lose, right? So I don't buy that. I think there
Well,
could
it
be
took her out
some
of War
injury.
Games too, though, right?
Yeah, it well, we can conspiracy theory that one because you could make a case that of the 10 women in War Games, she was by far the weakest in-ring competitor. And for a match like War Games, you kind of have to have that piece of the puzzle done. So I wonder if they took her out because they wanted to protect her from exposing herself. I don't know. But
Or
back to
you could just
this.
say that they needed someone like Bailey who can sell a ton more offense than she
Yeah.
can.
So
And I
Bianca's
don't
in
mean
the
she
ring.
can't do it. They're not going to have Jade get her ass kicked all
Yeah,
over
yeah,
the
yeah.
ring, is what I meant by that. Yeah.
And so Bianca is in the ring and she's winning this match. She sees that Jade is laid out dead. So she's in the ring. She's looking at the ring. She's doing this. She's like, do I go back to the ring and win the match? Or do I go help my friend? Do I do this? Do I do that? So she runs to the back. Okay, so Chelsea, now, funny enough, Chelsea got a very loud pop for winning that match.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of let's go Chelsea chants when she was fighting Bianca. So, hey, you know, that's a good sign. So she goes to the back. Then they go to commercial. They come back. Jade is being, gurneyed into the ambulance. Bailey and Naomi come out, and Bianca immediately almost accuses Bailey of being the reason this happened. And then I'm thinking, she's accusing Bailey, but the other person might be the culprit, which is Naomi. And then I
Naomi seemed
saw,
real calm. I'm just saying, real
yeah,
calm.
and then when Naomi and Bailey had a tag match later against what was it? It was Bailey, Naomi versus Tiffany and Candice, and the match ended up in a no DQ. But when Rhea came out to help them, and they all hugged, they showed Bailey and Naomi hugging, and Naomi had this really um, heel look to her. She didn't smile. She wasn't happy. She was like, hmm. And then Naomi goes on her X feed and says, I'm trying to get to see Jade in the hospital, but they're saying I'm not family. They won't let me in. This is not right. And I'm like, why are you saying this? And I'm like, okay, now they could change, but I think she's the culprit.
That's what's so great about it, right? So I loved it. If I've not said it before, My wife does not love wrestling. Okay, not her favorite thing in the
This
world.
is
Uh,
a strong
but
state understatement, but yes.
yeah, not her favorite thing in the world. She she did like Oscar. Whenever Oscar was on TV, she's entertaining, but that's about as far as it's gotten with women's wrestling. But Friday night, I just have SmackDown on, and she's reading a book or something. We'd she was kind of done consuming entertainment for the night, so I have the TV on what I want to watch, and she looks up from her book with Jade sprawled on the car, and she's like, "Oh God, it's like a bad soap opera," and I was like, it's a story, it's gonna be fun, and then the ambulance scene. What's funny is I look over and wrestling's on all the time, and she's ignoring it. She's like reading her book or on her phone or whatever, but I do see her looking up and the hysterical Bianca and Bailey and outside the ambulance, and I see her looking up from her what she's reading, and she didn't say anything else, but I kind of caught her watching it, which I thought was funny. Uh, it's attention grabbing is my whole point of that story, but um, it obviously could be Naomi. It could be Bailey. I think that would be the worst answer, but it could be Bailey, right? That's the she's the one holding the candlestick right now, right? It's the on TV, that's the presumptive because she gets into the War Games match. Her and
Hmm.
Bianca have never had trust. So Bianca's obviously going to say it's her. It could be Bianca,
Yeah.
right?
Shawn Michaels, Triple H,
Right? It could be the obvious. It could be Naya or Liv, Raquel. So
Lash Legend.
I love it. I love it because the type of cheesy wrestling stuff that the men have always gotten to run with and the women rarely do. So I was almost clapping. I was so happy with it. Um and they've got all the right women involved too because
Hmm.
Naomi will tweet about it, and she knows that tweet, even if it's not her, she might have been at home like, man, if I throw this tweet, it's going to really put some people, on my scent. Um
Well,
I
do
I, I
you
just
you follow her on X, right? Did you see how she was responding to everybody who accused her of doing it?
And that works both ways. It either makes her look more guilty, which if
Mm.
she is, it's like, yeah. And if she's not, it's like it's a red herring. Um, it's obviously not Bailey. If they turn Bailey back heel right now, it would be really stupid, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
I don't think it's Bailey, but
But on TV, it should look to be Bailey, right?
it can look to be Bailey because Bianca has long not trusted Bailey, and has never liked her. Has repeatedly said, you caused me all this grief. And what doesn't make sense to me is how
Because of
Bianca's.
you, I won 5 3-on-1 matches because of you.
What I don't understand though about what they do with Bianca's character is Bianca's chummy with Io. Well, Io was part of Damage Control. Like
Right,
she's actually the one who beat you for the title.
right.
Bailey never beat you for the title. She beat you for the title.
Bailey's never beat her.
Yeah, it's like I don't I don't get that part of it, but she just has this thing where she doesn't like Bailey, which is cool. I saw somebody posted this. Who killed Jade? Wrong answers only. And my response was Tony Khan. Hey, if anybody had a beef with her to get her set up where she got like taken out, it'd be Tony. She left him, right? That would be
Yeah.
interesting. Now, if you were going to introduce a new woman to the roster, that would be another great way to do it. But they've already brought in Stephanie, they've already brought in Julia, so you can't do it with them. They brought in Zarya, so you can't do it with them. Another really good, I saw this on the timeline was Lash Legend and Jakara because a Lash Legend. So I'm spoiling this for everybody. Jade will not be in the United States Women's Title Tournament. Lash Legend is her replacement. Michin versus Lash versus Electra Lopez. No. Electra Lopez is Yeah. Elektra Lopez is the person. No. Elektra Lopez, I think, is in the Naomi match. But let's see. So it was Michin versus Lash, and there was another lady in it. It's a spoiler, so I shouldn't really be
Piper.
saying
Was
this.
it Piper?
Piper, thank you. Yes,
Yeah.
Piper.
We won't spoil it, but yeah, it was
Yeah.
Piper.
So Lash not only is getting into this tournament because of the Jade injury, what do they do with the tag belts? Are they
I asked
gonna?
if she's really injured, right?
So somebody pointed this out to me. Well, just have Bianca carry the belts and beat everybody. She does it anyway. Just have her be Super Bianca. She can beat everybody by. She doesn't need a tag partner. I know.
They've been good enough champions that I would, if Jade was truly hurt and or for storyline reasons, I don't see any reason why like Bianca could just have, like, they could hold those titles for. This is the first time I've said this in women's world tag team champion history, probably. The belts could be not defended for 30 to 60 days and it would
Mm-hmm.
be fine because they've been good enough to earn that grace.
Or give me my dream scenario, and Io is her partner for 30 to 60 days as a filler, just so I can get. I don't know if you remember this, but in NXT, Bianca and Io were about to become a team, and then COVID hit, and they completely went away from them being a tag team. They even cut a vignette together as a tag
Oh,
team.
dude, I have not thought about that once since it happened, but you're absolutely right. That's
So,
that's a crazy what if.
give me that team for 30 to 60 days. But I think that the fact they did it with Jade is also really good because now her anticipation and her return is going to be super built up. And I think you're going to have a star making, she's already a star, but you're going to have the crowd really behind her, no matter who she fights for, whoever ended up doing it. And if it's Naomi, the reason I'm really all for that is they're going to get a spotlighted match, and it's not going to involve Bianca. It's not going to involve anybody else. It's going to be them. And I think they both, deserve it. And I think it would be great for Naomi. Like, look, if you look at these pairings, Naomi seems like the clear cut favorite to win this United States title. She's the clear cut favorite, right? Because you have Bailey next week versus Chelsea. And then there's a
Naomi
Naomi,
versus whoever, or presumably
right?
Naomi.
Naomi beat, faces whoever. And then do they do Naomi Bailey in the finals? And Naomi finally beats her, but for this title. And then as the seeds, get planted and the story gets told that Naomi saw in taking out Jade, she knew Bianca is such a good friend that Bianca would leave the match to allow Bianca out of it. So now Naomi's like, I don't have to fight them and I can beat everybody else. And
That's a
that could be the
great
easy story.
that's a great story. Yeah, that would be fantastic. I love something that has so many layers. It's funny you said that, when Jade comes back, and honestly, I thought Rhea was going to be out for a while. We all did. She got a welcome home pop after like 2 weeks. But, something that the old heads in wrestling really had wrong, um, that I think is so apparent now. Back in the day, people would tell you, and this is why there was so much drug abuse, and I'm talking about like prescription drug abuse, is they were so afraid to lose your spot.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you don't show up for work for 1 week, 1 day, you're losing your spot. And that's how wrestling was forever.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if y'all ever watched the movie about the Von Erichs,
Mm-hmm.
sad movie, but you could just see that everything was about, you can't miss a show, you can't miss a match. It's funny, is the real truth is really the opposite. And a healthy amount of time away, once you're made, exponentially keeps your character going. Mercedes has
Yes.
taken advantage of it. I
Mm-hmm.
am I am ready to leap out of my seat the moment I hear Charlotte Flair's music. I'm being dead honest. I'm gonna lose my shit when I see her. And Becky
Mm-hmm.
starting to get into the territory where it's true because I'll say from personal experience, I was pretty sick of Becky's character was in the WWE realm of things when she left, right? I wanted the title to go right to Liv. I didn't feel like we needed
Mm-hmm.
that Becky couple months. Um, I think her absence has started to be felt in a way where when she comes back, it's going to be a gigantic moment, not only because she's Becky freaking Lynch, but a healthy amount of way um, really, really actually helps. And I'm not saying we want any of these women to miss 3 and 9 months. And Charlotte and Becky can afford it because they're already
Mm-hmm.
legends. But like for like someone like in Jade's position, a month harm her. In fact, it will accelerate her when she comes back.
So you actually brought it up without me having to kind of lead you there, which was good because I was going to bring it up. You have been a strong critic, and critic is the wrong phrase, but you've been strongly opposed to Super Rhea. You know,
Yeah.
you're not like the biggest fan of not Rhea Ripley, the wrestler or the character. You're like, I don't like that she doesn't show any vulnerability.
Hmm.
And finally, with her getting laid out in the most dangerous place in wrestling, the NXT parking lot, they had an opportunity to show some vulnerability to her, and they didn't.
Nope.
You know, she comes back with a mask. So again, this week's SmackDown, Bailey, Io, Naomi are getting the snot beat out of them. There is no Bianca because she's with Jade in the ambulance. Rhea came out with a kendo stick and beat everybody up. She just wiped everybody out. And there was a lot of people angry about that on my timeline. They were really pissed off. They were like, okay, let's give her the women's world title, the WWE women's title, the tag belts, the US women's title, the NXT women's title, the NXT North American title, and the tag belts. Because at this point, what they're showing me is that Rhea is superhuman. She can't really get touched ever. She can come out and just beat everybody up. What's the point? Why are we? And so, where I'm going with this is one, those same wrestling fans, not you, you were around for this era. They wouldn't have liked Steve Austin.
I get that. I have what I find to be a very educated feeling on the topic, though.
Mm-hmm. No, no,
You're
I know.
teaming you're teaming up perfectly on this. So Steve Austin was once in a lifetime, and we were okay with him clearing the ring over and over and over again, and I'll tell you why. Because he was the first babyface in wrestling history to not be dumber than the opponent and to be willing to not play by the rules. And when Steve Austin used to come to the ring, and if he would clear the ring with a chair or a kendo stick or whatever weapon, a Zamboni, whatever it was, he was creating havoc that baby faces were not allowed to create that sort of havoc before. Hogan or a chair every once in a while and swing it at air, but he wouldn't headshot lay people out. But Steve Austin broke that mold, and baby faces have fought back with weapons for 25 years now. So the bloom is off the rose on that, and it's great to do once or twice and whatnot, but it's like Raquel should not be overpowered by Rhea, especially Naya. Should not be overpowered by Rhea. It's just not a good look. Um, you know, she's not the only big, strong woman. You know, how are they going to book a Bianca Rhea feud at some point?
It's going to be Hogan Warrior. I mean, that's the only way you can book that match.
But it's like, who's good? Like, they both sell when they wrestle.
Yeah, yeah.
Sell when they wrestle, but like, um, who's gonna take the low spots on the go home show like laid out? And I'm not saying neither woman is willing. That's not what I'm saying. Um, you know, you could really get someone over by having them beat the crap out of Rhea and have Rhea show vulnerability. And the same could be said the other way for Bianca. And it's a waste to use both of those against each other, is what I'm saying. Is like it's I don't know. I just
Look, you were on that train before my timeline was, or the timeline was in terms of Rhea, where you were months ahead of the curve on this one. You were like, she just has no vulnerability for me. Like she's even Bianca loses. Bianca
right,
gets beat up. Rhea, if Rhea loses, she gets cheated. She's never lost clean in years. And even when she loses, they go out of their way to tell you she was cheated out of it. And then she'll
right,
get her win back right away. Right? Like when she beat up when Liv beat her for the title, not for the title, when Liv retained her title when Dom turned, the next time that they fought, Rhea beat the crap out of her and pinned her clean in the middle of the ring in the mixed tag. And then when they have the subsequent match after, it was that whole cluster of Raquel was supposed to cost her but didn't, and Rhea ended up winning by
right.
DQ because the ref screwed up. And I'm noticing like in the arena, they're always going to cheer Rhea. There's always going to be, my mommy, where's my mommy signs. Like she's super, super, super over. So they're not going to have to worry about the fans turning on her because, to your point, people who go to WWE shows now are not snarky. They're happy. They want to cheer who they cheer. They get
They
excited. They love
yeah,
being there. So we're not going to have to worry about people turning on Rhea where they're like, why is Rhea getting no reaction? Like that'll never happen. But to us who watch on TV, I gotta say, I was a little disappointed in the SmackDown ending because when I heard Rhea's music, I'm like, Rhea's here. She comes out with a kendo stick and she just beats everybody up, and I'm like, wait a minute, it's 5-on-4. It's Naya, it's Raquel, it's Liv, it's Candice, it's Tiffany. They don't even have Bianca, and you could make a case Bianca is either 1A or 1B of the captain of this team, and they still get the upper hand? What's the
right.
point? Why do we need Bianca? They just have 4-on-5 and Rhea can win. And then if you remember, there was the War Games where Rhea pretty much won it single-handedly against the super team of Bianca, Io, whatever. She won, like she had somebody in the match against her. I think that's when Dakota turned, right?
And yeah, and she
And she
still won.
still won. And she still won the match.
She had
So
a teammate turn on another teammate, and she still got it done.
it feels like to me that ever since she lost to Charlotte Flair at WrestleMania, they have been trying to rewrite that wrong with Rhea Ripley because they knew that nobody wanted to see Rhea lose that match. And from that point on, they're like, okay, once they struck gold with the mommy character, because remember, Rhea kind of morphed into it. And once she
She
caught
was in the tag
fire,
team division for a minute with Liv. Yeah,
and once they caught fire with the mommy character, and she became the merch seller and the ratings draw. Okay, now we're protecting her. We're not gonna let you take the shine off of her. Like she is our money. She is the next 10 years of the face of this company or this women's division. And they signed her, they paid her a lot of money. I mean, I think this is what we're gonna get with Rhea. I think when Rhea gets to like 30 years old, because I think 27 now, then you might see Rhea go in the way of a Charlotte where she has some vulnerability and she loses. But I don't know. People online don't seem to be excited about how she gets the upper hand every week.
I I no, it's 52 weeks of programming. If you go back over the last, what is so 3 year, 156 weeks of programming, 3 years. How many times did Rhea clear a ring, kendo stick or not? Um, you know, not usually against five women, but the two she's up against or whatever. So it's it's a similar story beat, and I get that they're pumping up war games, which we got to talk about. But
Hmm.
I you know who I'd love to see come out and actually shock the crowd and beat Rhea, you know, lay her out and maybe be the one to kind of take the fire. You're gonna love this. Uh, Stephanie Vaquer has been so her aura is shining through so good
Hmm.
on NXT. Um, that that the way that they got her like that smirk when she's kind of taking in the crowd and how they're reacting to her. I think she's so main roster ready. Like I think she could come
Hmm.
up to the main roster, get a reaction, and just build on the reaction. She's more main roster ready than any woman they have down there, save for Roxanne.
Hmm.
Um, I don't think Julia's quite there yet. I don't, you know, I don't think they're currently on the same path. But I think Stephanie would be someone who the physicality between her and Rhea could be good for both of them. But I'm dreaming at this point. It's not happening in the next. It's not happening
Well,
before Mania. But you know,
no, but I think that whether it's Julia or Stephanie, they've both gone on record as to saying, the match they want, both of them, is with Rhea. So
yeah,
clearly, Rhea is kind of the person you wanna hitch your wagon for a feud with, because she's gonna get spotlight. She's gonna get, it's gonna be the money match. Stephanie is phenomenal. I mean, I knew she was a really good wrestler when I saw her wrestle Mercedes that first time. I was like, whoa, I got to go back and watch this woman. Like, who is she? She's unbelievable. From that point on, I've been a fan. And clearly, in WWE, they protect her very, very well. And they invested in her. And Stephanie coming to the main roster and laying out Rhea would be great. I gotta say, like, when they laid her out in the NXT parking lot, I was really hoping I would not see Rhea until the Royal Rumble. I
yeah.
was really hoping that Rhea would be out of War Games, because like I said, a team with Bianca Belair and Rhea Ripley, come on, like, I mean, and Io, they're not gonna lose. Like, I
No,
mean, what do
no.
we what do, unless Naomi turns in that match, setting up, hey, I'm the one who took Jade out, and they turn Naomi into this monster heel. It's just Rhea Ripley and Bianca
That's the
Belair
only
on
way it
this
goes down. That's the only
Bianca
way it goes down.
Belair on the same team at War Games is the 2017 Warriors. It's a cheat code. It's just not fair. And they're the two most protected. I could make a case. They are both more as protected as Roman Reigns. In fact, Roman Reigns has lost clean more than Rhea has.
Yeah. So, games preview.
Yep.
I applaud the effort they've put into putting story behind this, but here's where they fell a little short. And it's a heel face alignment thing. Looking back, it's actually good that Liv is going to be Liv or not anyway. But we talk about rankings, right? So you got what do you got? Liv champions, granted.
Mm-hmm.
Tiffany, Candice, right?
Mm-hmm.
Naomi. Okay, so you got 10 women. There's no argument that Rhea and Bianca are the two most A ranking protected women in WWE. You just said that.
Mm-hmm.
Then you got a mix of Liv and Io, I would say, are the next group there, where they're going to
Mm-hmm.
look good more often than not. Bailey's only not in that group because Bailey's so made as a legend that they could lose in the next week. It doesn't matter. And so I don't think Bailey's stature is below all those women. I'm just talking about how conscious they are about making them not lose matches and not look bad, right? Like Bailey's Bailey is, Teflon at this point.
She is, yeah.
She's a freaking goat, So,
Hmm.
but that group, you got Bailey and Naomi, and then on the bad guy team, you've got Candice, Raquel, and Tiffany. Are like you've got of the 10 women in the match, the good guy team has 5 of the top 7 women.
Hmm.
I don't know how that works unless one of the good guys turn. Maybe we're figuring it out now. Naomi's turning during the match.
Well, so let's look at this match. All the women's champions on the main roster are in this match. You have the women's tag champs, right? Jade is out, but Bianca is still there. You have
Yep.
the speed champ in
Right.
Candice. You have both world women's titles. And
Right.
I think you have the next United States women's champion, because I do think it's Naomi now, is going to be in this match. So all the women with titles or soon to be titles, in my opinion, are represented. And the only way you can beat a team that has Bianca and Rhea is you have to have them at a disadvantage.
Right.
And I can't see any other scenario of them losing other than Naomi turning in this match. And then the story is revealed that she took Jade out. She goes to Saturday night's main event against Bailey, because then Bailey, now begrudgingly to Bianca, has to kind of stand up for them and get the title away from Naomi. And I, I would book it that way. I would book the Bianca Rhea team to lose. I
What do
would
we
book
get?
them
Yeah. What do
to
we get by
lose.
them winning? From them winning.
Well, what you get from them winning is we just don't let them lose. All right. I mean, if
I
that's a
mean, but like
story that, yeah, if that's a
from us,
story, then
what
go
what's
for
the
it.
next step? What's the next step of the story if the good guys win?
My other reason why they should lose is because they're not a cohesive team. Bianca has forever been rivals with Io and Bailey. Yes, she's friends with Naomi and she's friends with Rhea, but damage control has long been a thorn in Bianca's side, so there should be some distrust there. The
Has
other
any of
five,
them ever been aligned with Rhea? Trust her to do
no,
anything? No.
no, no. The other five women,
NXT.
the other five women have an understanding, and they have put that on the table. Nia's like, I don't like you, Raquel. I don't like you, Liv, but I hate the other women. Candice and Tiffany are going to do everything they can to win Nia, so they're gonna be on their page. Raquel and Liv are BFFs. So on paper, this is the what is the saying? The sum is greater than the parts.
Yeah.
That's what this is, right? Like this should be the heel team is the well-oiled machine, and with the Naomi turn in the match, that's game over. But I've seen this story before with Rhea. Dakota Kai turned in the match, and Rhea still won.
Right.
And Rhea
Uh,
beat a super team. Shayna Baszler at the time was indestructible as the women's champ. Io Sky, Bianca Belair, and Dakota turned on her partner, and Rhea still won.
did so one thing about WWE, for better or worse, they're formulaic, right? They don't like to throw
Mm-hmm.
the same pitch over and over again on a pay-per-view. So I'm sitting here thinking, all right, the men's match. The same could be said for the men's match. You have Roman and CM Punk on the same team. Out the box, that team's not losing, right? Out of the box, that team is not losing. Now, how does that team lose? Team only loses, comes back, creates distraction and shows that Solo. that he's really the head of the table and Solo's his minion, right? That's the.
Hmm.
Am I missing something, or that, or Roman and CM Punk are absolutely not losing? Roman's not losing 2 straight pay-per-views unless something
Well,
bigger is happening, right?
what was funny to me is I listened to an Observer's podcast yesterday. I wanted to see how they thought about the AEW pay-per-view. And they talked about how why was Paul Heyman not wearing a suit? And they couldn't figure it out. And I'm like, every wrestling fan figured this out in 10 seconds.
He's
He
just like
dressed,
Solo.
yeah, he was dressed like Solo. So is that where this is going? You know, the phone was disconnected because he really is he's Solo's wise man now. He's not Roman's wise man, which goes back to the story of Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes said, Roman, when I beat you, you're going to have nothing. You're going to have no family. You're going to have no wise man. You're going to have no title. You're not going to have no tribal chief. Well, if Paul Heyman then goes to Solo and then we get Cody and Roman Reigns at some point down the future, that's the Roman Reigns promo where Cody then has to be the bad guy, which is you took everything from me.
Right.
And now I have nothing to lose. And look, if what you're saying is correct about the Solo team winning, then you can't have both heels win war games.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. In fact, heels hardly ever win war games historically.
There's no way they sweep them. Yeah.
Yeah. So Triple H, who is a very big student of wrestling, knows the business like nobody's business. Even he knows it. There's a reason why the War Games team, the heels always get the advantage. Now, I'm going to throw a monkey wrench, and I know we're wrapping up here. Nia Jax fights Bianca Belair on Monday night. The winner's team gets the advantage. Okay. Bianca wins that match. The baby faces get the advantage, and that's how Naomi turns. Because they really don't get the advantage. Right?
Right.
Because if Naomi at some point turns in the match, then the advantage does go back to the quote unquote heels, but the baby faces have still on paper gotten the advantage. So
good, yeah.
Is Nia Jax going to beat Bianca Belair again?
Wouldn't
Because
it be
she's
three
already
straight if she does?
yeah. So I mean, now if they're going to tell a story of Bianca Belair has never beaten Nia Jax, and then she finally gets her big win somewhere.
I'm going to ask the question, and maybe
Mm-hmm.
Bianca ever got Nia up in the kiss of death?
No.
So it's a great story.
Yeah.
Has the greatest finishing move in women's wrestling
Ever, yes.
bar none.
Mm-hmm.
Better. Plenty of people have kicked out of the Riptide. She's got to avalanche that sucker in her big matches in order to get the pin. So kiss of death is the most protected move and best move in women's wrestling. I don't think is incredibly strong. Getting Nia up on her shoulders and getting her knees straightened out would be. They'd probably do it. Did she not get it done once on like from the top rope? She like kind of had her on her shoulder. She didn't have to pick her up. She just had to do it.
Well, she's carried Otis. So I think she could carry Nia.
God, she's so strong.
She is.
Maybe I just wanted to brag how strong Bianca is. It's incredible.
She has every single women's performance center record at NXT. Like every single one. Like box jumps, high jumps, dead weights. She has every single record.
And I'm not being shitty to Nia. Like even her getting like Rhea up or anyone who's her size or bigger, try getting someone up on your shoulders and standing up straight, like, and then bouncing and flipping them off. It's an incredible move.
No, I
mean, Nia's a bigger woman than she is, so it's a body weight thing. Okay, like her own body weight ratio.
So look at Bianca, what she did with Mercedes, where she walked her up the stairs and threw her into the ring. Now, for people looking at it like, oh, Mercedes is like a buck 05. She's a featherweight. Yes. But the balance it requires to walk stairs, because you're going up. You're not flat walking. You're going up,
Yeah.
up. And then to have the balance to throw her. Number one. Number two, remember, people forget the spot that Mercedes is the one who told Bianca to do, where she pressed her with one hand.
Yeah.
Like, we forget that spot too, right?
When
And
she
how
got
she
Otis,
does the suplex, the vertical.
what did she get Otis up in?
No, it's her and Bailey had that challenge where they had
Yeah,
to, like, the obstacle course.
she
And
had her.
Bailey carried somebody, and then Bailey's like, "No, you're not carrying Chad Gable, you're carrying Otis." And she just said, "Okay, then come on." And she carried Otis, and that was almost like the star-making performance for Bianca, where that clip got like her most YouTube views and everything. And from that point on, I mean, the rocket's been on her, and she's never really looked back. But I mean, yeah, Bianca doing the KOD to Nia at WrestleMania would be awesome. And honestly, Nia has a pretty, I mean, Nia has a, Nia's been on a little bit of a hot streak. I mean, she doesn't really lose. I mean, she lost
Yeah.
to Naomi, but that was because of the old briefcase thing, Tiffany. But man, I mean, we are in a really good place for women's wrestling. And honestly, if
No,
AEW can give us matches like what they gave us last night and just work on their week to week TV, we're in a really good place.
we are in a really good place. The thing I want to say about Nia, again, lest anyone think I'm, not for me, to wrestling has always been about, you've got the bigger performers who are presented as monsters or never put in helpless situations. Never. Andre the Giant was booked for 30 years in a way where body slamming him was the great, made a earthquake, not due to like ripple effect around the world as far as news goes. He was picked up off the ground, right?
We are
Um,
so lucky the internet didn't exist for Andre the Giant. But yeah, I'll tell you why in a sec. Go ahead.
I know what you're gonna say, uh, but not just the strength it would take to get Nia up. Nia on someone's shoulders would be entirely helpless, and that's why I bring it up. It's a helpless position, and Nia is such, and Rhea and a lot of these women who are booked so strong are never really put in a helpless position. So I think it'd be a hell of a story arc. Uh, Go ahead on Andre. Spoil it for
No,
everyone who
so
doesn't know.
so I'm a kid, right? And I watched WrestleMania 3, which is Hogan slams him. And to me, I think that's the first time Andre's ever been slammed, right? Because that's what they told me on TV, and I didn't watch all the other wrestlings. At that point in Toronto, we only got WWE or WWF at the time because they bought the territory. Used to be an old NWA territory. So, and I go to South Carolina. I have two older cousins, Gary and Vinay, and they watch wrestling, but they don't watch WWE because they live in Charleston, South Carolina. They watch Mid South. They watch NWA. They watch, that wrestling. So I tell them, I said, hey, did you guys see WrestleMania 3 with Hogan versus Andre? And they're like, why would we watch that crap? And I'm like, that sucks. And I'm like, well, I'm as a kid and they're older than me. I'm like, but Andre got slammed for the first time. My cousin Gary, he's the oldest of the brothers. He's like, really interesting. He pulls out a videotape, puts it in his VCR of Mid South wrestling. Kamala slams Andre. 3 years before Hogan Andre at WrestleMania 3.
Yeah.
And he just shows me, and I'm like, wait. And I'm like, oh my God. Andre's been slammed before? And I'm like in shock. I'm like, what? Wait, Andre was, and I'm here like, don't even know other wrestlings exist at this point. I'm like, wait, there's other wrestling companies, and Andre wrestled in, where is this place? Like, I didn't know anything about it. And he was like, and he's a wrestling savant. He knows his wrestling. He goes, you know how many times Andre's been slammed?
Right.
He
Big
goes,
John Stud.
in every territory, they would bring Andre in, and the way they would set up the feud is they would slam Andre. That's what it was. He gave me a list: Kamala, Road Warrior Animal, Big John Stud, Um,
Don
oh my,
Morocco, maybe?
no, no, not Morocco, but someone in that vein. Oh my goodness. Hacksaw Butch Reed, um, Dr. Death Steve. Like he gave me a list of people who have slammed Andre the Giant.
Who was that muscle guy I keep thinking of? It's not Don Morocco, you're right, but it's someone who was they were just a muscle unit. God, I think he was on WrestleMania 1 or 2. I can't remember who the hell he was. Older dude. Anyway,
And
the podcast will go forever if we try to figure
yeah,
that
yeah.
out. But
But yeah, like as we wrap here, my cousin, he's just like, no, Andre's been slammed 50 times. In fact, he told me then Hogan slammed him at Chase Stadium, which was the WWE product. And they still pretended like that didn't exist. And I was
right.
like, oh, okay. So on that note, another great week of women's wrestling recap here on the balance sheet. Um, I think we can all put to bed the rest of the demise of Mercedes Moné. She's still as good as ever, and she proved it last night. And Kris Statlander, bravo to you two. You are
Yeah.
a superstar as well. And those women tore the house down. And for me, not only was it the best match of last night, it's one of the best wrestling matches this year on any promotion in any. I don't know if I have it ahead of Bailey Io right today, but by the time we get to our end of the year recap, it might be.
Well, I will tell you, day after I have it as my match of the year. Um,
Okay. That's fair.
I will watch it again and reevaluate. These things are fluid, but if somehow I want to end on this, if somehow we have someone who listens to this podcast who is a Sasha Banks fan but not a Mercedes Moné fan and is not following her in AEW, and I guess that's possible. Um, for God's sakes, please seek out this match.
Mm-hmm.
It's prime. If you loved Sasha Banks, this is your jam.
Mm-hmm.
It is right up your alley. You will enjoy it. Mercedes and Kris, bravo, tore the house down. Uh, Certainly a match of the year contender, and I woke up on a high because of it.
Yeah, me
Excited
too.
to film this with you. So appreciate everyone listening in, and you guys got Monday Night Football right tomorrow.
No, we play tonight against
Oh, is it
your
tonight?
wife's team. We
I thought
play
it was
against.
tomorrow.
No, we play. No, tomorrow night is the Harbaugh Bowl in the same
Oh, you're
arena
right.
though. It's a Ravens Chargers in the Harbaugh Bowl, but tonight is Rams Eagles. Here's the funniest stat about these two teams. The Eagles have not lost to the Rams in Los Angeles since 1977, but the Rams haven't lost to the Eagles in Philadelphia since like 1990.
Weird.
It is one
Well,
of the weirdest. They've actually played 47 times.
um, well, I usually do root for your team. I have to root for my wife's team tonight,
Yeah,
but hopefully it's a good
you
game.
should. Well, you should not
Hopefully,
only root for the Rams for that reason, but you should root because we're on your Lions' heels.
but um, well, again, thanks to everyone for listening. Here's to another good day of football and another great week of women's wrestling. Next week we'll have the War Games recap.
We will see you then.
Thanks, guys.